Let's begin. The rain had been falling for hours, long, unbroken sheets of silver that swallowed the two-lane road outside the naval base. It was the kind of night that made even the most seasoned drivers slow down, lean forward, and squint through the trembling wiper blades. For Hayden Marshall, it was a night that felt strangely familiar. Rain had a way of quieting the world, of softening the noise inside a man's chest. And tonight, after a 10-hour shift, mopping hangar floors and clearing out utility rooms, no one thanked him. For Hayden welcomed the silence. His old red pickup rattled softly as he eased down the winding road toward home. The heater hummed weakly, unable to quite keep up with the damp cold. His shirt clung to him, sweat from the long shift, mixing with the residual chill from stepping in and out of the rain. But none of that mattered, not compared to the thought waiting for him in the small apartment across town. Chloe, 8 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, and bursting with questions about the world. Questions Hayden tried his best to answer, even when exhaustion tugged at him like lead weights. She had stayed up tonight, he knew it. She had told him before school that morning, "Daddy, when you get home, I want to show you the picture I drew. It's you, me, and Mommy in the clouds." Hayden had swallowed hard at that, the kind of swallow that carried grief down a man's throat and kept it buried just deep enough to survive another day. His wife Claire had passed 2 years earlier. Cancer. Fast. Ruthless. Hayden still felt the echo of that empty hospital room every time he opened Chloe's bedroom door to kiss her goodnight. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, just a little further. Just get home. Then, through the flood of rain, something white flickered in his peripheral vision. At first, he thought it was a trick of the headlights. A road sign, a mailbox, a stray bag blown across the asphalt. But as he rolled closer, his chest tightened. A person. A woman. Walking directly on the painted center line, drenched to the bone, unsteady, like someone fighting both the weather and her own body. Hayden braked hard. The truck fishtailed a few inches before gripping the slick road. His heart hammered as he stared through the windshield. The woman wore a white navy dress uniform soaked through until the fabric clung to her form. Her shoulders slumped, her other hand pressed to her forehead as if bracing against pain or memories. A single suitcase dangled from her right hand, the corner scraping the asphalt with a dull metallic hiss. She looked utterly lost. As the truck idled beside her, she lifted her head. The headlights washed over her face, pale, strained, unmistakably exhausted. Her rank glinted faintly under the rain admiral. Hayden's pulse jumped. An admiral walking alone on a back road in a storm at night. Something was wrong. Badly wrong. He rolled down his window despite the spray of cold rain that immediately slapped his cheek. "Ma'am," he called out. "Are you all right?" She blinked slowly as though gathering her strength just to focus on him. Her voice cracked. She swallowed. "I'm fine. Thank you. I just need to get back to the base." "You're heading the wrong way," Hayden said gently. "The base is 3 miles behind you." She stared at him, confusion flickering in her eyes, the kind of confusion that didn't come from being lost, but from being overwhelmed. Another crash of thunder rattled the air. Hayden pushed open his door. He didn't think about rank, or protocol, or the fact that she might yell at him for stepping out of line. He only thought about her, this woman in white alone, in a storm, barely standing. "Ma'am, please," he said, voice steady, honest. "Let me give you a ride. It's not safe out here." She hesitated. Not out of pride, Hayden could see that. Something deeper held her back. A fracture in her composure. A weight she was trying and failing to carry alone. Her fingers trembled around the suitcase handle. Finally, in a voice so quiet, he almost missed it, she whispered, "I could use a moment out of the rain." Hayden nodded once, respectful, no pressure, then stepped forward, and took her suitcase with the same care he used when tucking Chloe into bed. He opened the passenger door for her. She climbed in slowly, every movement, deliberate, as if her body were running on the last thread of discipline. When he slid back into the driver's seat, he turned up the heater. The cabin filled with soft warmth as she shivered, rainwater pooling at her feet. Only then did he see her face clearly. She was beautiful, yes, but in a tired human way. Not glamorous, not untouchable. A woman carrying the kind of burden that carved itself into the corners of her eyes. Hayden cleared his throat. "I'm Hayden," he said quietly. "Hayden Marshall." She hesitated again, as if deciding whether she could afford to be human right now. "Madison," she finally replied. "Admiral Madison Clare." Her gaze drifted toward the window, but not before Hayden caught the glimmer of something raw behind her composed exterior. Pain, shame, and something dangerously close to breaking. As the truck rumbled forward, Hayden stole a glance at her. Rain hammered the roof. Wipers squeaked rhythmically across the glass. In the silence between them, something settled gently in the air, something neither recognized yet. Two lives, both carrying storms of their own, had collided on a lonely road in the dark. And somewhere far ahead, though neither of them knew it, the first drop of hope was beginning to fall. The road stretched ahead in a dark ribbon, lit only by the soft glow of Hayden's headlights pushing through the storm. Inside the truck, the air was warm but fragile, like a sanctuary built from nothing more than kindness and a shared exhaustion neither of them had the strength to hide. Madison Clare sat rigidly at first, her back straight, her eyes fixed on the blurred landscape outside the window. The white of her uniform had soaked through, completely clinging to her arms and shoulders, her hair dripping onto the collar. She looked less like a decorated admiral and more like a woman desperately trying not to fall apart. Hayden didn't speak right away. He knew silence could be its own kind of comfort. But after a mile or so, he glanced over gently. "Long night?" he asked quietly. A humorless breath escaped her, something between a sigh and a broken laugh. You could say that. She didn't offer more, and Hayden didn't pry. He kept his eyes on the road, letting the steady hum of the truck fill the space between them. It was Madison who eventually broke the quiet. "I wasn't supposed to be walking," she murmured, her fingers twisting absently in her lap. "But sometimes life doesn't care about what's supposed to happen." Hayden nodded, not fully understanding, but knowing enough about loss to recognize that tone. "Well, you're safe now. That's what matters." Madison's gaze drifted toward the windshield. "Safe," she repeated softly, as if testing the weight of the word. "I'm not sure I remember what that feels like." Hayden didn't know how to respond to that, not yet. But something stirred in him, a quiet instinct to protect the same way he felt when Chloe had nightmares and crawled into his bed, whispering she missed Mommy. The storm softened just a little as they drove. Madison lifted a hand to her forehead, pressing her fingertips against the spot she had clutched earlier. "Are you hurt?" Hayden asked, concern slipping naturally into his voice. She shook her head. "Not physically. Just overwhelmed." Another silence fell, but this one was different, less tense, more open. Like a door that had been cracked just enough for a small light to pass through. After a long moment, Madison exhaled slowly. "Have you ever had a day," she said, "where everything you spent years building suddenly collapses in a matter of minutes?" Hayden considered her, really looked at her. "Yes," he answered softly. "I have." Madison's eyes flickered toward him. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition, respect, maybe even a fragile understanding between two people who knew what it meant to lose more than they could bear. Hayden didn't offer details. He didn't need to. Madison continued first. "There was an incident," she said, her voice steadying slightly. "A report. A series of miscommunications, and the blame ended up on my desk. They suspended me this afternoon until an investigation is complete. She swallowed the memory clearly sharp. I've commanded carrier groups. I've faced crisis situations that pushed every limit I had. But nothing prepares you for the moment you realize people you trusted don't trust you back. The admission hung in the cabin like a trembling thread. Hayden's jaw tightened. He didn't know her story yet, but he recognized injustice when he heard it. "What happened wasn't your fault," he said simply. She huffed a small laugh. "You don't even know me." "No," he agreed. "But I know what someone looks like when they're carrying something that shouldn't be theirs." A beat passed, then another. Madison's shoulders softened just barely, like a rigid line easing under the weight of sincerity. "And what are you carrying, Mr. Marshall?" she asked quietly. Hayden kept his eyes on the road. "A daughter," he answered. "A promise. And grief." The word dropped heavy between them. Madison's expression changed, gentled. "I'm sorry," she said, the words genuine, unguarded. "Thank you," Hayden replied. For the first time since she stepped into the truck, Madison truly looked at him. Not at his clothes, or his rankless civilian badge clipped to his shirt, or the worn fabric on his sleeves. She looked at him. A man shaped by loss, but still choosing kindness in a world that had given him so little of it. The storm rumbled distantly. "How old is your daughter?" she asked softly. 8. "Chloe." His voice warmed. "She's probably waiting up. She made me promise to see her new drawing tonight." Madison's lips curved slightly, a tired, wistful smile. "Kids have a way of keeping us anchored to the good," she murmured. "Yeah," Hayden said, glancing at her. "They do." For a brief moment, Madison felt something crack open inside her chest, something she hadn't allowed space for in a long time. Vulnerability, humanity, the simple, unadorned truth that people like Hayden rarely held power, yet somehow held more character than many officers she had met in her long career. A sudden shiver ran through her. Hayden noticed instantly. "You're freezing," he said. "I've got a blanket behind the seat." "No, it's fine, Madison," he said firmly but gently. "You're soaked through. You'll get sick." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. He reached back, grabbed a folded flannel blanket and handed it to her. She wrapped it around herself slowly, almost reverently, as though accepting warmth was an unfamiliar act. "Thank you," she whispered. The sincerity of it made Hayden's chest ache more than it should have. They rode in silence for a few minutes, warm, companionable silence this time. Madison's breathing steadied. Her shoulders loosened. Her eyes softened from sharp vigilance into something closer to exhaustion, finally allowed to breathe. Then, quieter than before, she said, "I wasn't walking away from the base, you know. I was walking away from myself." Hayden didn't respond. He just listened, something very few people ever did for her. "I gave everything to the Navy," she continued. "Discipline, loyalty, every holiday, every relationship, every fragile piece of myself that I convinced I didn't need anymore." Her voice trembled, just slightly. "And now, for the first time in my life, I don't know who I am without the uniform." The windshield wipers swept across the glass. Hayden inhaled slowly. Maybe he said, "You're about to find out." Madison stared at him, really stared, like his words had touched a place she didn't know was starving. The storm outside began to weaken, the rain thinning into soft streaks like fading tears. Ahead of them, the lights of Hayden's apartment complex appeared through the mist. Neither of them knew it yet, but something quiet and life-changing had begun in that old red truck, a small shift in two weary hearts that had lived too long in their own storms. The rain had softened into a mist by the time Hayden pulled into the small parking lot behind his apartment building. The complex wasn't much 2 stories of aging brick, a few flickering stairway lights and balconies cluttered with bicycles and forgotten chairs, but tonight it felt like a harbor, a place where the storm outside couldn't reach. Madison gazed out the window at the modest building, her brow furrowing slightly. She had stayed in countless Navy quarters, from steel-walled cabins on aircraft carriers to spacious suites in Pentagon housing, but nothing about this place resembled the world she had lived in for decades. And yet, there was something about it. Something grounding. Honest. Hayden cut the engine and turned to her.